everyone, welcome to At the Table, the only show that asks you to take out your TTRPG books, pull up a chair, and join us at the table. Speaking of welcome at the table, everyone, welcome Sidney Rubino, or as you know her as Ilona. Today we're going to be talking about romantic roleplay. What with the Valentine's hangover probably still fresh in our skulls, let's continue a conversation that we thought was kind of fun. We had a lot of fun talking with, but didn't really get to talk a lot in depth. But before we do,
and also more important, very important voices.
Yes, absolutely. Because just two guys talking about romantic roleplay is like just bacon wrapped ham. Yeah, a lot of pig is good, but sometimes you want some chicken with that.
Bro, you're making it awkward. You're making it awkward.
Well, someone's got to do it. So moving right along. And also, I kind of like the metaphor of just having two pigs. But that being said, let's do some introductions and get right on with it. Mr. Michael Powell, why don't we, like always, start with you? Who are you and where can we find you on that sweet, sweet internet?
Well, I'm Michael Powell, and you can find me all over the interwebs on my social media, which is at Mr. Kapow. That's MrKapao. And how about you? And let's go to Sidney. How about you, Sidney?
Okay. Well, hi there. My name is Sidney Rubino, and you can find me all over the internet at Sidney Rubino. The only thing that is different is my TikTok handle, which is Sidney of Hightower. And speaking of Sidney of Hightower, I release videos of me reading folklore and fairy tales every Tuesday to my YouTube channel. And I go under the guise of Sidney of Hightower there. So if you like stories, yay. PJ?
Well, you know me, I am PJ McGaw. You can find me everywhere on the internet at pj.mcgaw. When I'm not here Wednesdays with Mr. Michael Powell, you can find me, Tuesdays with Mr. Michael Powell. You can find me here Wednesdays for the Edge of Legend Homebrew Pathfinder 2nd Edition game. And more details later, but I'm all over the internet at pj.mcgaw, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. So let's get things started. I'm seeing the chat that there's a bit of an echo. Do we have the voice of Yeah, I can hear it now. We sound like we're awesome. Like we're in a
All right, try now. Better?
We'll have to give a delay a bit of let's try it. Hold on. Talk.
All right, talk.
Wait, 1 second. Sounds good to me. All right. Sorry, I'm listening to the playback as we're going along, and I have to, give it 5 seconds. My apologies. So, that is who we are. What we're talking about today is romantic roleplay for your table, for your LARP, and anything else. Ooh. That was a weird echo again.
Oh, sorry, that was my phone.
Ah.
That was from my phone.
Got it. Okay.
Y'all.
We good now. We good.
You two together. I watch this show pretty much every week, and every opening is always chaotic, but this might be the most chaotic one I have ever witnessed, and I am honored to be a part of it. So thank you for having me on for the Romantic Tables Talk.
Yes, this has been, I think, the most special episode of At the Table. Let's just keep riding that energy, and let's just see what happens. So, first of all, everyone in the chat, how was your Valentine's Day? How was your Sunday? How are you? It's been almost a year since this madness has kicked off, and we have been doing our best as individuals, as role players, as gamers, as people, to stay in touch, to communicate, just to be with loved ones. How are you doing and all that?
Yeah, a little, what is it, not self-care, but a little check-in, a little mental health check-in, I guess. Hope you're all doing well. This is at the meantime, psychiatrist table.
Oh, no. That's not my job. I don't know about you, but I have no jurisdiction to tell people how they feel. Kiko Semek, that's my friend Kian, he says that his Valentine's Day was overpriced. And I know that because he got a lot of dim sum and he took a picture of it and he sent it to me, and I'm jealous.
Oh, no.
Mm-hmm. And throughout 618 said it was perfect and amazing. So that's great.
Well, now, I think that's a good cue to talk about some of that romantic role play. So, romantic role play, what is it? What does it mean? What, like, is it good? Is it bad? You know, last time we talked about this, one of the big things we mentioned, and we're just going to get this off the table right now, is consent is always key, obviously. You know, so always establish consent lines with romantic role play, whether it's, you know, two players, player NPC, and any other variation that is. So, and if we need to hit that mark, we'll go back there.
Oh,
But,
don't worry. I feel we're going to be repeating consent is key throughout the show again, because that is how important that thing is.
yeah, absolutely. I'm just looking over the chat right here. Always happy to lend romantic cues. Salutes. Thank you, Thrash618. Give us those romantic cues. Actually, let's talk about cueing. So, I think one of the things that romantic roleplay, what makes it interesting is the story you tell together. Now, my goal with this topic of conversation is to expand upon the good more. Last time we talked about this, we kind of focused on the negative, and we can still do that today, but I really would like to talk about the positive. Otherwise, why is this a thing? You know,
Right.
why is this not like a line or a veil that's not at every single table?
Well, I'm glad that you want to talk about the positive because to be completely honest, I've found that online romantic role play has gotten a really bad rap. I was kind of talking to Michael about this before we went live, but because some people do take it to another level and they do make it very uncomfortable for other players and they can't read other people to see when they've gone too far. You know, sometimes it gets a bad rap where it's just like some tables it's just not a thing you're allowed to do. But I think that there are some really amazing opportunities that you can have when you do it correctly and you have romantic role play at your table. And I think that it all depends, of course, on your players. It depends on your players and it depends on your DM or GM. But there are some really beautiful moments that you can have through romantic role play, and I think that there are a lot of positives. So I think we should focus on that because why the heck not? Take the other side this time. Let's expand our minds and feel the love, dude.
Yeah.
But also, I also want to say, while romantic roleplay can be great and all, if your players aren't interested in it, that's also valid. That's fair for them as well. So you gotta just check in with your players, see that everybody is on board with having kind of a romantic subplot in their game.
Yeah. I want to put two things into the universe as we have this conversation. Make sure to keep this one focused on the positive. Chat, as you're watching and listening. Last time we had some nice, fun catharsis as we told horror stories of roleplay gone wrong. I want to hear in the chat you guys talk about romantic roleplay gone right. Whatever that may be to you, you know, and of course we'll discuss that in further detail. But secondly, and this is something I want to kind of put up as like a reminder that sometimes it can be good. And I know I touched upon this briefly in the last time we talked about this, but the romantic role play between Fjord and Jester in Critical Role. And I'm just going to leave that hanging there, like this low-hanging pinata fruit, and we can beat that when we need to shake it for candy. But going back to some of the positives, let's talk about the positive of romantic role play. Does anyone want to start on that?
Sure. Well, one of the things I want to add, though, is actually not really, I guess, positives. It's more adding to the background what you said about the Critical Role thing, actually, if you don't mind.
How so?
I kind of just want to say because of like streaming shows such as Critical Role and honestly our show Edge of Legends on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Nat20 Productions official on Twitch. Low plug there for us. I feel that TTRPGs are starting to become kind of less about kind of the mechanics and more about interpersonal relationship and the narrative. And that's not to say combat and all that crunchy stuff, like we talk about here at the table at 3:30 p.m. Tuesdays at Nat20 Productions official plug.
Wow.
Yeah, and it isn't still around because trust me, I've read enough D&D stories and RPG horror stories to know that it's still well and alive. You know.
Yeah. Sidney, did you have anything you wanted to say or add? And no, it's fine. Come back.
I mean, yes. I think I wanted actually to bring up something in chat. So Thrash618 said something that also your audience should be interested and care about romantic subplots and things like that. And I think, yes, audience engagement and audience point of view should absolutely be taken into consideration when you have like an online streaming show like Critical Role or like our show. But also when you're just playing just by yourself, not for anybody else, just for you, it should be equally, at that point, you are the audience. Mm-hmm. You are the ones that care. So you should be the ones checking in with each other. I think having just open communication is sort of the best way to go. Just generally, just communicate your feelings, how you're doing, what are your boundaries.
Yeah, no, I think that's all very, very good. Malice put out a very interesting thought, speaking about sometimes how the audience is you yourself, right? Mm-hmm. It says it can allow people to play out things that they wouldn't think they can do in real life, i.e. they are too shy or have low self-esteem. Mm-hmm. And I do think that is a very good point. I have a few friends who are in college now and writing theses and getting doctorates in using tabletop role-playing games as an official and conducive form of therapy. And I want to put a very, very hard line right here. I am not saying that gaming is therapy. I'm saying it can be. I'm saying not everything you do as a hobby is therapy. I'm saying it can be. Catharsis and therapy are two extremely different things. If you're doing something because it feels good, that's great. If you're doing something because it is a positive environment in which to deal with your traumas, problems, or things that prevent you from having a good quality of life, that's therapy, right? So if you go into a TTRPG game and you're having this opportunity within a safe environment where you are supported and there is no rush and you are allowed to express and grow, as Malice suggested, on things that you're shy on, that is absolutely a therapeutic environment. And that could help you in the real world to express your feelings better to those that you maybe want to ask out one day. That's a positive.
I mean, it is a positive. It is a positive takeaway. And I can actually speak on that from a sort of LGBTQIA plus perspective, because I think it was subconscious at first, but you know, the way I play my characters, I sort of came to terms with my sexuality through playing characters that were attracted to women. So even if I am shy in real life and perhaps I don't feel comfortable approaching a woman in real life because women are scary. In a game, I can play whatever character I want to, and I can put on that confidence, and I can do that because there are really like no real world consequences. If the NPC says no, that's fine. It's just a game. So I think that's a very good point that Malice brought up, because I've personally experienced that, and you can do things like, aw. Mm-hmm. What if someone has like their first like relationship with like an NPC, and like that's how they learn how to love? I think that's cute. I think that's nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Aw.
In chat, Thrash618 posted, "For me, at work, a very public place, the character I play had a blossoming romance with another co-worker's character. It's amazing to see the strength and positive effect with doing very little. It doesn't take much, but we have tons of success stories."
Yeah, that's really good. I'll speak from personal experience about a positive, as weird as this is going to be. So in my personal life, I was with the same woman for about 5 years. It was an abusive relationship, controlling, manipulative, and physically abusive for almost the entire 5. She came from a very toxic family, but I was young and I was in love, and I didn't know that I was allowed to walk away from that. I thought that once I put my flag in the we're going to get married camp, that I had to follow through with that. But eventually I just got so fed up and tired of the abuse that I left. Hooray. But here's why this is important. I started trying to date at the age of like 21, 22, having had a quarter of my life taken by this person. And let's just say that was hard, not only because of relearning social skills, but trying to escape the stigma of being the taken boy was not one that I had any consent or voice in. I was not allowed to basically fight that stigma. But what I will say is I had crushes on some friends of mine that I had for a long time. And role-playing games with people who might have shared a name, might have shared a personality trait, it was set up with a therapeutic design of basically allowing me to stop feeling any sense of anxiety, fear, and actually let all of those feelings go. No attraction, no attachment, no nothing. It was great to just kind of let everything melt away. And then basically coming back into that friendship with no designs, no desires, other than just being a good person to a good person. And so it was really almost therapeutic as a way to help me get over people whose names in my head carried a bit too much weight. So that was nice, and it was romantic in that, like, we went on dates, we set up this whole, like, in-game world where it's like, oh yeah, that's her, she cute, and the GM's like, do you ask her out? Yes. And then we go on this romantic date, and it's like, just getting out of my system feels great. We're friends now, and we're moving on, and we're just making a partnership. I think we actually like owned a business together. It actually kind of helped a lot.
Yeah, I kind of want to say that it's at the table when you're playing with friends, it can get. It's not uncommon for people to feel, weird or awkward with it. That's a totally valid feeling, I feel, because you don't. It's pretty much people you don't really see that way. And how would you kind of role play? Okay, I'm a little tongue-tied, I guess, today. It's been one of those days. But I guess what I wanted to say is, how would you role play a romantic subplot with a friend at the table who you don't really see that way, or you do see in that way, but you're not acting on it, I guess I could say, if that makes any sense.
That's a very good question.
I mean, I feel like the lines are kind of, there's a lot of gray area there. Because if you try and initiate, it seems, in my opinion, if you have a crush on somebody, if you have a crush on somebody at the table and your character is trying to flirt with their character and you haven't been honest with this person about how you feel, that feels kind of underhanded to me. And a little, I find that problematic in a way, because if you, so correct me if this is not the scenario that you were presenting, because I could have misinterpreted what you were saying. If you are using your character to basically start a relationship with another person, and you're not communicating that with them, and that your feelings are genuine, and they're not your character's feelings, they are your feelings, I do feel like you have a moral obligation to actually have a genuine conversation with that person, because otherwise it's sort of manipulative to have this experience and not have a separation. There's a difference between, like, oh, I never see them that way, but like I'm so in love with their character. If you have that separation, like, that's a completely healthy thing. But when you start mixing them, and you don't have a conversation, it gets messy.
Yeah,
there's a big word that we need to use here in this instance, and it's called bleed. And what was described was a very like front loaded way of saying bleed in. You know, like you have feelings for this person away from the game. And now when you start acting in character on these feelings that you feel in real life, regardless of what they are, that's bleed. And oftentimes that can be problematic. And in this case, it's manipulative because now you're forcing someone who has no education, let me rephrase this, no understanding, no idea of how you feel. And now they're kind of left wondering, okay, is this fake? Is this real? Are you trying to put me in a spot where I don't really have the safety, quote unquote, to say no? Is there going to be a fallout? I think if you are at a table with someone you like, romantically speaking, that's a you problem, homie.
Yeah.
That's where you got to step up. You know, that's where you have to step away from the game, talk to the person and say, hey, listen, this game is fun. I love playing with you because I love being around you. Why? I got these crush feelings and they suck. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Because honestly, that subject is more common than not in all the RPG horror stories I have read. You know, it's a very, very common topic that pops up on that Reddit subreddit, you know?
Yeah.
However, it is also possible, and this is why it's a gray area. That's why there's no really right answer. There's a bunch of gray, and you gotta like sift through it when it comes to romance. It's like real life.
Yeah.
It's like role play is like real life, except it's technically not real, but it kind of is. Anyway, that's my thesis. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
What I was going to say is that now I forget.
All right. While you try to remember, I'm going to read something from chat. Reap Psyche posted, it's a very interesting experience to see the romantic side of a person when they're allowed to be romantic in roleplay, when they're allowed to live out their actual romantic style and personality without the restrictions that they have in life, like money, physics, and etc.
Yeah. Really quickly, Sidney, were you about to say something before Michael read the chat?
Oh, I did, but I forgot.
Oh, okay. I was having a hard time parsing that out. Cool.
We'll come back to it.
Malice 1974 posted, romantic storylines are for in-depth role players and not the casual gamer.
I agree to an extent because yes, but also how does that casual gamer, quote unquote, become more in depth? You know, it's the argument of get good scrub. Well, how does the scrub get good? They have to go through those scenarios with guidance and care, not with kind of this gamer culture of cold removal and aloofness. Like, get good. Well, how do I get good? You just wake up one day and you are good. That's not how anything works. So I think what should be looked at though is how and why they're doing it. Like if you get someone who is just manically bleeding all over a scenario because they have never had the confidence or the self-awareness to do this in real life, and now they're just anxiously everywhere going, I flirt with them, I flirt with them, I flirt with them, I flirt with them. It's like, listen, I get it, you're excited. Hone that into something. Like, take a deep breath and figure out why you're doing this, what you're trying to achieve. Just
I think in instances like that, when you are at the table with somebody like that, I think that's when you have a conversation away from the table. Because it's all about care, right?
Yeah.
Even if you're not playing with somebody that you know very well, and while conversations like that can be hard, if someone at the table is having an uncomfortable time, or is unsure, or is not aware of what they're doing, or is making these decisions that you can see through because of your experience or just how you relate to human beings, I think it's worth pulling them aside and talking to them about it and talking them through it and saying, this is what I've noticed. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but this is how it's coming across. And I wanted to make sure that we talked about it because it seems like, you're going through something or whatever that may be. Because at the table is a very, very it's a very personal relationship, even if you barely know the person, that you do develop bonds very quickly regardless, or at least I would hope you would. But I think conversations away from the table are also incredibly important, so that everyone, no matter what they're going through, is having a safe time. Because I can't get mad at a Bambi who's like trying to walk on the ice like for the first time. Like, you know, you got to take a little consideration for your fellow man there, bud.
Yeah. I want to address two things. One thing from what PJ said about you know, and also I guess also Reap Psyche about if you already have kind of a theater background and are able to separate the facts from the fiction. That's one thing, but also as kind of a regular Joe Smo player who's at their own table, they're not streaming it, like, you know, stuff that we're doing. It can be a little difficult. I would suggest at that point, just as Sidney said, have an open, have an open dialogue with everybody at table, and especially with the person involved in said relationship, or even if it's a relationship with a NPC, you know.
Yeah. Really fast, I want to say hi to Greenbow Lightbrush that just showed up in the chat. Great to see you. I wanted to piggyback off that, and I also want to address a lot of really great things in the chat. So talking about actors being able to compartmentalize, absolutely. However, anyone who's an actor can say, we're still humans. There's a very interesting term called, I believe I'm saying this right, propensity. And propensity basically means a form of affection or attraction that comes from being around someone so much. Sometimes people will start having crushes on people at a table because they see them at the table so much, right? And that connection builds. Or, and Kiko, I'm going to butcher your name, I'm trying to get it right. Kiko Semic, thank you so much. And Kiko Semic mentioned about getting a crush on someone's character and not them. This is another problem with propensity where, like even in LARPs, speaking from experience, I've had a few instances where other players had a crush on my character, not me. You know, and what's really weird is that when you continue a dialogue outside of that game, sometimes that can also be a bit problematic because they're pursuing you, the player, with feelings they have for your character, and you will say, hey, listen, this isn't appropriate for X, Y, and Z reasons. There's some manipulation that continues further. But then later they kind of have that wake up, and they realize that those feelings for someone wasn't genuine or honest. They were just kind of conflated or inflated, I should say, by that propensity, by that closeness to a character or an idea, or maybe even the person themselves within a hobby space. Something else you have to look out for.
So what you're saying is that propensity is the fancy word for showmance, PJ.
Yes, but, okay, so when I was in high school and I was a dumb little scrub lord, I'd call it the 24/7 booty syndrome. When you're around someone's booty all the time, that's all you could think about, and then the show ended, and you're like, no, we only liked each other because we were backstage for 12 hours a day.
Piggyback offing what Sidney said earlier about checking in with everybody. There are forums now. I know a lot of people joke about these forums, about, you know, these consent forms that has a checklist with what you're cool with, what you're not. They can actually be useful, you know. They're actually very useful. And also want to bring up something. This is also a lot of the stuff that we're talking about is pretty much just a thing to pretty much talk about in your session zeros.
Yeah.
That's true. I will say, because actually a game that PJ and I played, we actually had the consent forms, and it was very helpful, and it really helped out the GM being like, okay, you know, we're going into hell. Is there any imagery that you want me to just stay away from? And like, you know, things like that, like things that might have been triggering for us that the DM never would have known. And then we write it down on a sheet. It's like, great, now I know not to put the X, Y, and Z in there to make for the comfortability of my players. I feel like I was going to say something else. But yeah, no, I think, oh, here we go. This is where I was going. Yes, it is absolutely important to have those conversations at session zero. However, people's opinions can change literally at any time.
Yes.
Which is why it's always good just to have communication just in case. For example, if I was like in session 0, I'm like, I am okay with romantic RP in this game. Like, I think it'd be a lot of fun. And then all of a sudden, halfway through, I'm like, no, I'm not. No, I'm good. Thank you.
A little peek behind the curtain before our shows of Edge of Legend, and also even at the table, we have like usually about half an hour to an hour, before we go on air, and we just, as a group, we talk about the stuff that we done last week, how our week check-ins, and anything we want to, talk about before we actually play.
Yeah, no, I think, every table's different, but even in most of the games that I play, there is a bit of, how was your day? How are you doing this week? How is the pepperoni treating you?
Yeah.
You have to build actual relationships with the people that you're playing with at the table, because it just makes
interactions
it better. Yes, human interaction. Isn't that why we play anyway? Because we're lonely and we like friends.
Okay, you just got too real. You got too real there. You got too real there, Sidney.
Look, this is why this is important, all right? Look, we're all living in the Zoom age. We're all Gen Zoom, so we have to know how to be online and not exhaust our spoons when we don't have like a real interaction, but the kind of like the Zoom interaction. But we also have to know how to communicate romantic and non-romantic interests.
Yeah.
I'm seeing in chat a lot of other stuff about. Sorry, I don't mean to derail too much. Reap Psyche says there is a line going back to getting good and learning how to be a gamer. You have to get good on social interactions that don't inherently involve romance, because there's such a very specific line there. The sense of collaborative story consent can be learned with less stigma and volatility in other social scenarios than romance. Agree 100%. Just like D&D, I don't believe anyone has to be a professional player, but you need to be a professional person to play with the idea of, this is not just your show, this isn't your story, this isn't your game, this is our game, our show, our story. You have to allow other people to have their time, and you have to find a way to have yours with respect to your feelings and everyone else's. That's why it's collaborative.
So essentially, PJ, you're saying, don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick.
If you can, don't be a dick. Take that time and don't be a dick.
Yeah. Thrash618 posted, underhanded indeed. When the intentions are honest, or when a player isn't being honest, you jeopardize harming your RPG as well as your real friendship or real life relationships.
No,
I think I cut you off there, Sidney. I'm sorry. I apologize for that.
Oh no, it's okay. I mean, I was just going to say that that's true. When because as much as you can separate yourself from a character, there is still a bit of you that is in that character. And when something happens in game, or maybe you stepped on somebody's toes, or you did something that offended somebody, or like, your character's got into a bit of a tiff, or whatever it might be, it is always good to have the conversation after, being like, hey, that happened. I just want to let you know that I don't hate you. That was just our characters. That literally has nothing to do with how I feel about you. And like, just have that communication, because while yes, people should know that, it's always good to have reassurance. It's always good to hear again. For example, like Kylie and I, sometimes Shionibus and Alona do not get along, literally at all. But Kylie and I are like BFFs. So like, out of game, sometimes she'll be like, were you mad at me? And I'm like, no, I'm not mad at you. Of course not. You're my, do that whole thing. So yeah. I also I wanted to point out a very important thing in chat that someone said. Elo Govna said, I have booty syndrome now. And that is valid.
Yeah. Booty syndrome is rough. Also, I'm glad you said it, because Elo Govna, I wanted to piggyback on something you said previously, which was, I believe, and I'm paraphrasing Elo, so I apologize. It says that you really can't do the romantic role play because you tend to fall for that person. You tend to have that thing. And I think it's also something very, very important. You need to be honest with yourself. Yeah. If you are in a place or have a history where you recognize this is problematic, then that's something you need to protect yourself from. You need to protect yourself from you. You know, I've had some really bad romantic role plays, some on purpose, some on accident. And after doing that, I was like, okay, like, I need to not do this again, or I need to not do this from this perspective, either for a long time or under various different circumstances or ever again. So I've had to remove myself from that in the past. But that's a very different situation as a LARPer than a tabletop player. Just putting that out there.
And also, this is something about what you said about bleed earlier. A bit of an antidote, I guess, and a little thing. Back in the day, I used to play a lot of those Vampire the Masquerade, Werewolf the Apocalypse games on those by night sites. And for those of you who don't know, a lot of these by night sites are like real-time post by post role-playing games. And as we all know, well, as those in the know that Vampire involves a lot of romantic subplots. And one of the things you have to be really careful with is bleed in those instances, because I remember playing in a game called Salt Lake City by Night. Really? I should not have said that, because now I'm really hoping nobody who I played with back in that day is watching this. But yeah, I role-play relationships with other players, romantic relationships with other players who also had romantic relationships with their other characters, and it sometimes was hard to for certain people to not be jealous about that. You know, got to separate. Hey, this is a fictional relationship we're in. This is not a real relationship you're in. You know, or hey, this person in real life has a family, maybe a wife or a significant other. The role-play relationship you have with them, it's just a game. It's just fantasy. You know?
Mm-hmm. No, that is a very important thing to establish. And it is a very important thing to establish because, I mean, whether it's TTRPG, whether it's LARP, whether it's real life, honestly, I mean, everything is mirrored. Mm-hmm. Everything is mirrored in the games that you play. And so the laws of real life should also matter in game, even though it's a fantasy, it's still based in reality. Mm-hmm. So that needs to be taken into consideration. We're also talking as considerate people, and sometimes considerate people do not play these games. But it's important to talk about it still. I also wanted to say something that also, PJ, it's Grebo.
It's Grebo. Thank you. I was actually about to ask for you to correct me on that. So it's Grebo Light Brush.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Grebo.
Of course.
Thrash.
Every time.
Thrash618 posted, vampires as a role, and maybe even vampires as a role tend to get abused, used wrongly or inappropriately in role plays. Yeah.
I think the big thing about vampires is that as a role play, it's escapism and a power trip like it usually is. I think where the biggest problems with Vampire comes from isn't the TTRPG. Honestly, it's the LARP. Because the biggest crook of the LARP is facilitating and grooming like fake romantic relationships. And also there's a lot of manipulation inherent in the system. You go to Vampire to manipulate your friends and you call it a game. Now, is that what it's all about? No. There's a very interesting lore that's constantly changing to fit a changing world. There's a lot of really cool stories, a bunch of really cool powers. But every time I've gone to a Vampire game, it's like a high school drama club of problems. And it's like, well, why is this happening? It's because that's the whole point of the game. The whole point of the game is to outwit, outsmart, and outcombat each other. And the problem with this inherently is that, sure, you can check in, engage in PvP, consent, but then you have to have your secret plans and your under-the-table machinations to constantly get involved. And so eventually you're going to get to a part where it's going to have an implosion. And that's why I don't play LARP. Like you said, considerate people sometimes don't play those games. I think Vampire LARP can be really good. but I've seen it done wrong almost habitually to the point where I just feel like it's not safe to engage in that game.
And that's the choice that you have to make as a player. And that's ultimately the choice that we all have to make as players. Like look inside of yourself. What are you comfortable with? A very important part of knowing yourself as a human being and knowing yourself as a player is knowing what your boundaries are and not letting people cross them. Because sometimes, I know, at least for me personally in the past, I've let people cross my boundaries because I'd really rather not deal with the conflict of telling someone, no, that makes me uncomfortable. And it's one of those things where you have to learn how to do that for yourself and for the other person, because you're doing no one literally any favors when you let things like that slide. So it's important to know yourself. It's important to know what your boundaries are. It's important to know how you feel about certain things. And if you don't, figure it out.
I kind of also want to say that it's also especially important now, especially these days with streaming apps such as Roll20, Foundry, and all that, because a lot of these times with these games, you're playing with strangers as well, people you don't know in real life. And it's really difficult to kind of get a read on them in this setup, you know?
That's true. I wanted to bring attention to a really important conversation in chat, and I'm going to be reading for a little while now, but it's something that Grebo Lightbrush brought up like a few minutes ago. And he started saying it's the same in a lot of places, referring to romantic
I think we can say that word.
feelings.
We can say that word.
What? What word? I don't think we're reading the same thing. Let me just read this. It's the same in a lot of places. I used to do a lot of dance work in clubs. My persona was dark, quite quiet, and a bit of a bad boy. The total opposite of my actual self. Girls would date me because they got attracted to that, then would not be interested when I was away from that life and being my geeky self. And then Reap Psyche said, I totally get the performer image dating issue. When I was active in the music and fire performance scene, all these girls would think, oh man, he's dangerous and fast living. I am borderline lumbercore goth, ma'am. Please calm down. But back to Grebo Lightbrush, same. I worked at a lot of gentlemen's clubs around a lot of performers and models. So girls see the photos and think I'm some kind of person that you're not. And I'm like, no, I'm an introvert extrovert and a total geek and gentleman. And that, I think that basically that conversation highlights a very important thing, in that you also have to be careful as a person when people become attracted to you in these situations. Like, for example, like someone is attracted to you as like a fan. They're a fan of you, but they're not a fan of you. They're a fan of the character or persona that you put on for your job. So in order to navigate that, you also have to have an extra layer of self-awareness to be like, okay, I recognize that this is who I am, and this probably is an aspect of me. But you are attracted to that and not to me, and that is a whole can of worms.
Yeah. So let's talk about LARP for a second. I haven't had this happen too much in TTRPGs, only because there's a living duality, or juxtaposition, I should say, when you're doing tabletop role gaming, because we always preface, well, my character does this and I say this and blah blah blah. You're living the reality and the fiction at the same time, so people can kind of gauge, not always, but can kind of gauge there's a difference. LARP's a little harder because you're kind of forced to be in the character the whole time. And the LARP that I go to, I play the town drill sergeant. So I'm very much loud and in control and dominant military, knife hands everywhere I go, individual. I don't wear sleeves, but it's also because I sweat like a baboon, so sleeves just get in the way. And I've had a lot of individuals.
A lot of what?
Individuals.
Oh.
Have a similar issue. They think that, first of all, they think I'm in the military, and that's always problematic, because I'm like, no, I just grew up near every single military base in DC. I am not stealing valor here. That's against the law and disrespectful. But also, they think that I am that guy all the time. and it's like maybe that's a small aspect of what I'm capable of as a human being, but that's not true. So yeah, it's weird. But you know, when that's the only thing someone gets to see of you, I guess it's not excusable, but understandable that they would put you in this tiny box. You know.
Yeah, it's sort of. Oh my God, Michael! Sleeves matter to us with noodle arms, Michael. Oh my God, that's great.
I'm gonna sleep right now, and it's getting in the way of my bite. No. Anyway.
Oh my God! Shut up, PJ. I love you to death.
I cut myself off halfway because I couldn't.
You know what you're doing.
I know.
Don't act like you're innocent. You know.
Moving right along, shall we?
But actually, I want to really quick jump on what you just said, PJ. Situations like that probably refer to the term you used before, bleed, right?
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm just reading Group Psyche here saying, flex more, feed the thirst of chat. Look, I'm running low on water. I can only give you so much to fix that thirst.
But yeah,
that is.
No, I definitely feel. Sidney also brought it up before as well. What we do in game needs to be separated from what we do in real life.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of people. I don't know. Honestly, I don't understand how people can't really separate that as much. You know, kind of make a big mess about that. You know.
Mm-hmm. I think that sort of goes back to something that Reap Psyche said in chat earlier, is that D&D, TTRPGs, LARP, whatever we're talking about at the moment, I think all of that. A lot of these games initially were played by people who didn't get a lot of social interaction. They're becoming more popular now, and so more people are playing them, which is amazing and great, and we should embrace that. And like, this is a game for literally anyone. No gatekeeping here. Anyone can play TTRPGs, and if you don't believe that,
even those of us with noodle arms.
Everyone deserves noodle arms, and PJ's arms. Whichever arms you want, you got it.
Oh my God.
But so initially, a lot of people who were playing this game weren't necessarily understanding social constructs or how to interact with people, which is fine. And it's a very kind of learn as you go sort of thing. But now we're coming into a different time where plenty of people are playing the game. And yes, some people that don't necessarily understand how social interactions work will still be playing with people who do understand how social interactions work, and there will be clash. But that's why it's important to keep an open mind at your table, have conversations, and be able to address those things when they come up. Because the worst thing is when something happens at your table and you don't address it, and you let it fester, and it gets awkward, and then no one knows what to do, and then you feel resentment towards somebody, and then it starts manifesting in your characters, because that's how you gotta talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the general rule for just functioning in general, is just talking about it, having open communication. What were you saying, Michael? I
was gonna say also a lot of stuff that everybody here sees on Twitch and other streaming sites, and also YouTube videos. I bet you a lot of these shows behind the scenes make sure to kind of nip problems like this, what we're talking about, in the bud as soon as it rears its head.
Yeah. I've been... Oh, I'm sorry, Michael. I don't want to cut you off. You have more?
Oh, no. I'm just trying to make a point where what everybody's seeing, what we're doing, what other channels are doing, a lot of productions make sure not to have problems like this really permeate, you know, and also try to keep bleed at a minimum.
Yeah. So I'll say two things. because I feel like we're doing an amazing time. I want to go back to the positive aspects of romantic role play. But I will say the one negative, kind of talking about this problems with people at the table. Because sometimes, what is it? There's a thing. Oh, I forgot the phrase. I've been hearing on TikTok a lot about not quitting something because the investment you put into it. I had a game where romantic role play was part of it because it was based on a video game where romantic role play was part of it, right? And I think I mentioned this last week. So if you know what I'm talking about, awesome. And so the problem that I had was that everyone at the table was having a bleed of some sort. And I didn't know about all of the bleed until it kind of got a little too big, because one person would bleed and then they'd start recruiting people into their little clique. And then they would come to me asking for me to mediate, basically attack this other player for doing something we didn't like at the table until they basically want to leave. And I was like, well, you're half right. Maybe they messed up one time and I'll tell them not to do it again. They made their amends. Please stop bullying him at the game. And then they came on them and they said, no, we're right because we feel unsafe. I'm like, well, now it's 4 against 1. Now he's unsafe against you after he's already made his amends and apologized. Now you're becoming bullies. But you're also hating on this person because you have a crush on that person. It was a shit show. And there was so much expectation put on me and other people that were unfair. And when I went to all of them with their issues, they agreed and addressed it, and it never got fixed, actually at the table. And so eventually I just had to cancel the whole thing. But then conversely, so that's it. That's how bad it can get. And that even if you as people do all your due diligence, mediate, communicate, and all these things, sometimes you're also going to explode. But now conversely, here's that piñata I put up at the beginning of the show. Critical Role. There's 2 great things to take away from this piñata. Number 1, I'm going to get her name wrong, Marisha Ray and Matt Mercer. She's literally married, well, engaged. I don't think got officially married yet, but she's practically married to the DM. And they have a healthy relationship because it's a show. Yeah. They understand there's key parts, key roles. They understand where they are with each other. So she is not trying to pump him for favoritism or more influence on the show or anything. And he's not trying to put her on a pedestal because she's Marisha Ray. She doesn't need a pedestal. She's amazing on her own. They trust each other. They understand each other. And they know what they're about and what they're doing together. And then also, you have Fjord and Jester. You have Travis and Kaylee. Hold on. You know who I'm talking about. I apologize. My name bank is not working. They're married in real life. Travis didn't want to do romantic role play. He's like, I'm married to you. I just want to have fun, kill stuff, make money. And his wife was like, oh, I'm going to woo you. I'm going to make you fall in love with me a second time. And Travis was like, okay, I'm going to go with this, but understand I'm going to fight you every step of the way. I'm going to yes and you, but it's going to be awkward. And so because they were able to check in daily and because they were married in real life and they knew each other very well, they had this really fun, sweet, cute, and very accomplished romantic role play. So take a look at 2 sides of this coin, right? We have this side, which was just a sinking ship with acid in its belly from day one. And you had another thing where everything could have gone wrong, and it didn't because there was understanding, communication, and also they were playing for fun, not to win love.
Really quick, PJ. Grebo Lightbrush posted, her name's Laura Bailey.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, Laura Bailey. Yeah. I think the problem is I have a friend named Kaylee Bray who cosplays as Jester, and in my brain, that sounds too close. So Laura Bailey and Kaylee Bray are just like...
I want to kind of piggyback on what you said about Travis and Laura's characters. That was a choice they made. That both parties were okay with creating that romantic relationship. You have to make sure both parties want to be in a romantic subplot. Once again here, communication is key, and you should allow for the character growth to build, and also, on the other hand, if it doesn't work out, end quickly. If it ends, don't bring it up, back up. It's done. Move on.
So, oops, sorry, Sidney, what was that?
No, go ahead, PJ.
Oh, no, I just had a good old rant. Please, you say something.
All right. I guess I just wanted to sort of bring up, you both sort of touched on it, but I wanted to also say it. If you've done everything that you can, if you've communicated your boundaries, if you have had multiple conversations with a person and nothing's getting better and you feel uncomfortable, it is totally okay to walk away from that table.
I want to say, oh, sorry.
1,000%. If you do not enjoy the way something is happening, if you feel uncomfortable, if you talk to your DM about another player and nothing is changing, or you've talked to that player multiple times and nothing is changing, and there seems to be there's no satisfactory end, and while yes, it is sad that you might have to be the one to leave, and that's not fair, you have to do the best, whatever is best for you and your mental health, your mental well-being. That's all I wanted to say.
I want to add to
I
that.
think it's good.
Treat these relationships with the same patience and understanding as you would a real one. Be mature and be respectful. And also, don't be a dick.
I mean, yeah.
Yes.
That's going to be my new meme. Don't be a dick.
I want to say that's a hashtag. Let's see. Reap Psyche was guessing that the BioWare game that Kiko Semic was asking was clearly a RP based off the KFC visual novel.
I played that.
I wish. I wanted so much to run the Wendy's D&D game, the one that Wendy's made their own TTRPG system for in the land of like Fresh Burgera or whatever it was. I had that module. Never got to run it. It was actually really good.
Next one shot. We just found the next one shot.
Maybe I'll see if I can still find it. But I also want to address something that Thrash
Order of the chicken
said.
nuggets.
Order the I am a champion of the chicken nuggies. I want to address something that Thrash618 said. Random question for someone like me who's newbie to EOL, which also awesome. Thank you for being with us. How do you guys approach romance in your storylines? Is it talked about beforehand? Does it happen organically, etc.? Well, I think the only thing I can speak of right now is that there's romance in people's backstories, which is mostly just a narrative. But I think we tend, and I'm only speaking as the GM, I cannot speak for the players, but I know we try to handle this organically. If there seems to be an interest that keeps reoccurring, talk about it out of game, figure out where they want to go with that part of the story, if they want to go anywhere at all, or if that was just kind of like a cheeky, making it my thing to just kind of flirt with this other character for no reason. But yeah, so I think that's at least what I can touch on right now. And what I like, or at least my goal, is to have a loose plan without any commitment to romance. In that, if the relationship never happens, that's great. It's not a necessity. It's not a have to be. It's a choice, one that anyone at any time can walk away from.
Yeah. You know what? Do you mind if I give them a look behind the curtain about a romantic subplot that already has occurred in game, PJ?
I will say
with my character.
With your character. With your character, yes.
Remember, I don't have my notes with me right now, but when we were in Adelphon Prime, and my character romanced one of the senators. I'm blanking on his name right now.
Master Dominus.
Oh my god, yep. I forgot!
The rendezvous.
Yes!
The rendezvous. But, yeah, you and me, PJ, we actually, we sat down, we talked, you checked in with me about, hey, first of all, are you okay with this relationship? Are you okay with the fact that they're both male identifying characters and all that stuff? And I was like, you know what? I'm cool with it. Let's do this.
Yeah, because I think my original intention was never to create something that would continue unless you were like, you know what? Yeah, I'm feeling this story. Let's see what happens between Master Dominus and Rufa.
Also, I mean, another thing that's brought up here, because, and this is strictly in a show aspect, or something where, while chat doesn't necessarily influence the game, they do in some way influence the game because they are our audience. And chat was going nuts over Daddy Dominus. And so I feel like that is a very interesting dynamic that most people don't even have to consider at the table when they play games by themselves, because it's literally just them. But when there is an audience there and they see potential in something, you have to make that decision as a player and as a person whether or not you want that for your character. Because at the end of the day, the choices that you make are yours and yours alone. That is your character. You can do whatever you want with it. And anyone that tells you otherwise, they don't have any place to tell you how you play your game.
Yeah.
However, if you want to do something because it makes you happy and the audience is enjoying it, all the better. Hands up in the air. We're having a good time.
Yeah. Like, honestly, if I wasn't cool with it, I trust PJ enough to not pursue that, avenue. And I know PJ would be respectful enough to not push this on me as a player.
Of course. And I got to be honest, that date RP was amazing. Because it wasn't just, note for all your GMs and DMs out there. It wasn't just romantic roleplay dating. It was a series of skill checks where people were, not just you, but everyone was involved in trying to make the night special. And depending on how many successes and failures, you could actually affect the narrative. And I'll be honest, you guys were this close to bombing that entire date. You were like 1 point off.
Oh my God, I know. It was terrifying.
Really quick, I think this is really interesting thing to actually touch on in this topic that we're talking about from Greenbow Lightbrush. How do you deal with actual sex in RP? Is it always fade to black or ...
Yeah.
I want to say, at least in my games where I DM, when it comes to stuff like that nature, I always go to fade to black, imply that things have happened, and then just move on.
Yeah, I want to speak on this because I feel like that is a big check-in first. And having done both sides of that role play at a table, both are valid, but they're different. So let me preface this by saying it was a homebrew Legend of Zelda campaign I made up. And it was basically Doctor Who with Legend of Zelda characters. And they would jump into every single Legend of Zelda game. And these were like a ton of Legend of Zelda fanboys. And so there's a few Legend of Zelda universes I made up because I was like, you know what? This is my time to be creative as well. Here's the universe where Link is a Viking and Ganondorf is a Roman centurion. Here's a universe where Link is the princess. Well, Zelda is the hero and Link is the king, and Zelda's got to go to save the world. Or Link and Zelda are both men and they're in a relationship and they have to work together. The point is, I was having all kinds of fanfic fun. And so were these players, and they were constantly trying to seduce people of different universes, and I was constantly checking in saying, okay, are we okay with this as a group? Because I'm about to go into some detail. And they were like, yeah, we're here for it. So I had to describe up to a point how their slash fic was going to go down. And it was fun. And I think we spent almost 3 hours in one game, just everyone getting their romantic evening. Nothing got done plot-wise. But it was fun. We were consenting adults. We were having some unusual role play. We still respected lines and veils. But that's because you check in when it looks like it's heading that direction. Conversely, you can also make a hard rule. The minute bedroom eyes kicks up, you fade to black and shoot fireworks. You know what I mean? Like, both are valid depending on your players.
I'm going to paraphrase something that Reap Psyche posted. There's also likely sometimes somebody at the table who just doesn't want to hear it. And honestly, those feelings are very valid as well. As somebody who's not involved in any of that stuff, maybe they just don't want to hear it and just go, you know what, can we just fade to black, move on, and just get on with the game? And that is totally valid thing. Not
to mention, you would then take over the entire session if you were to do that. Yeah. Because that would take like an hour? To just RP back, that's too much. That's too much. You are bulldozing over someone else's game when you do that. And people are just sitting there listening to you banter back and forth, and no. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
If you want to do that, you set up a private session.
That, or you know what? It's time to write your own fanfic.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's why you check in with everyone, because if one person said, you know what, I'm a little uncomfortable with this, sure, cool. Well, you don't have to, you know. Like I said, I took 3 hours role-playing this with everyone at that table. That was a 6-person game. I was exhausted.
Yeah.
Boy. So, back to the chat, dear God. Hold on, I want to see what happened with Grebo Lightbrush.
No, Michael just said his name wrong.
Michael, I just got corrected.
Sorry.
It's Grebo Lightbrush.
That's all. That's literally all.
Here's my cheat. Think of Max Rebo and then Grebo Lightbrush.
I was
really
actually
good.
honestly thinking Gree as in the clarified butter, but that's because I cook a lot.
Aww, Michael has food brain.
Michael
Yeah.
Michael make food good. But also I wanted to quickly, someone asked a question who Morel is. Completely on the topic, off the topic of romance. So Morel was an NPC y'all met in the first episode, who I guess tried to join. They're basically on a mission to kind of, it's complex. They come from a very beautiful and powerful empire that through a lot of history has kind of become disregarded by a lot of the world. And Morel, for a lot of reasons, is trying to fix that. He is trying to be the example to lead by the diplomacy for how this empire now integrates with the rest of the world. And it's caused him to suffer a lot of abuse very, very stoically. And the first person he's ever actually gotten forgiveness from in his entire career as being this redeemer was Ilona. And this is really important to him because Ilona's people are is a group of people that has the biggest beef with Acadia. And the fact that she is able to forgive him on sight and mean it means the world to him. So he is kind of this big, beefy Acadian with this giant shield. He doesn't wield a sword. He just has like iron gauntlets. And everywhere he goes, he tries to be the wall that protects others and the example of forgiveness. And so that's who Morel Harkisian is. There's a lot more. Oh, he's also one of the champions of Aphra. Aphra is one of our gods in this world. And because of that, he has what that's called his eyes, or their eyes. Gold, kind of mostly with a purple like flower, like a sunburst, because in my world, when you are dedicated to a god enough, you get your eyes. Because the eyes are the window to the soul. And now your soul is filled with their presence. So your eyes reflect your god. Ilona will get her eyes pretty soon. It's a level thing for clerics. I've been working on the lore for that.
Now I'm just imagining what happens when you get the eyes if you worship a demon god.
It's very possible. There is a group called the Malefactors from Tor. One day you'll meet a few, and you'll get to see what happens when you're on the spicier side of things.
Spicy. Yeah. Oh God. Oh, so spicy. Yeah, no. I mean, if we want to talk a little bit about, remember when we had episode 11 and we just had the episode where we talked, we just talked to chat and we read fan fiction. That was a part of the episode that night. And it was awesome getting stuff for Rufa and Woodward. It was really awesome. Getting stuff for Morel and Ilona was really great as well. There was some really beautiful stuff. And I think we, even in that moment, we had to sort of like have a conversation in our group, like, okay, if someone sends us like steamy fanfic, what are we going to do? We had to have that conversation. Like, what are you comfortable with? What are we going to like read on stream? Like we had to talk through that as people because that was a possibility. I mean, we didn't get steamy.
I'm thankful that our group is mostly wholesome. Our audience is mostly wholesome.
Yeah.
I'm saying mostly, at least.
I don't know. It got kind of dicey there with Daddy Dominus a little bit.
Yeah, it did. It's really
Mostly.
my fault. It's really my fault for naming him Dominus. I shouldn't have done that, but it was such a good name.
I mean, yeah, you kind of set yourself up for that one.
I did. I really did.
But I mean, those are conversations you have to have. I mean, that's a very unique situation. Not everyone at the table is streaming, so that they don't have to think about things like that. But it's important to like have conversations with your players. Like, are you comfortable with your characters being perceived in this light? Because you don't necessarily. That's the thing about art. That's the thing about art in general, like TTRPGs, LARP, whatever you call it, art, umbrella. When you put a piece of art into the world, you're also sort of giving up control, like a little bit, like it's balanced. Like it's still yours, but once you put it out there, people can take that idea and do whatever they want with it. And you may never even know. You may never know, but someone will take that and they'll go do what they think should be done or whatever they want. And you also have to come to terms with. Is this something, since I'm being put in a more public light, am I okay with the ramifications of that, whatever those are? And you do have to come to terms with that. That's a thing.
Yeah, I have a few friends who are actual, published writers who've been on the book list and everything. Some of them are young, what are they called? Young adult writers, like those books, right? Like
YA fiction.
Yeah, YA fiction. One of them didn't really know what fanfic was until after she published her first book and discovered fan fiction. It was a very interesting moment for all of us as friends to explain to her what fan fiction was. She discovered spicy fan fictions about her character.
So I have a few artist friends, and I've seen this story on Reddit. I've had it corroborated with my friends that do animation. God love them. When you work for at least the Big Mouse, I don't know about the Orange Splat, but for Big Mouse, they will pull you aside and say, "Listen. As part of working with us, we own all of your drawings, concepts, and intellectual property. That's ours. It's not yours anymore. But because that's the case, that means we own all of the, shall we say, after dark materials that get drawn, that either you make, that is submitted to us, or that we find." And they will sit the artist down and be like, "Listen, you need to prepare yourself. This is everything the internet's doing with Rule 34 and your characters."
I didn't want to say it, but you just did.
Well, I think I can say Rule 34 and not say in greater detail what that is. You can Google it on your own times for safety's sake. But yeah, it's a big thing. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Vault 34. That's where they keep it, right next to Vault 33.
It's a vault that a lot of people walk past. No eye contact is made.
Yeah, they're sitting there go, "Oh, Vault 33, that's where the princess videos are kept." Vault 34, that's where the other princess videos are kept. We're just going to keep on moving?
We're shutting that down. No. No, I mean, it is a thing. Like Reap Psyche just said, I had some ideas for some steamy stuff with Shionibus and Voss, but I wasn't comfortable writing that about another person's character. And that is a conversation that you had with yourself, and that is great. And you can have those steamy thoughts, and you don't have to put it on paper, and that's also okay. Yep. And if you would have sent it to us, oh well.
Yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, we don't read it out loud, and I think that's fine. Wow. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for coming in today's episode on romantic roleplay, do's, don'ts, consent, communicate consent, as well as good stories and bad. It was a lot of fun, a lot of learning, and I had a great time talking with you, the chat. So without further ado, let's say our goodbyes, starting with our amazing special guest today, Sidney Rubino. Tell them who you are and where we can find you on that sweet, sweet internet.
Well, my name is Sidney Rubino. That is SIDNEYRUBINO, and you can find me on the internet at that very same name. I am on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, and I'm also on TikTok at Sidney of Hightower. Now, every Tuesday, I have a show on YouTube where I read folklore and fairy tales. So if you would like to listen to fairy tales or folklore that you normally wouldn't get access to, you can come listen to me read them to you, and we can have discussions about the moral implications of those stories.
Very, very awesome. Mr. Michael Powell, please tell them who you are and where we can find you on that sweet, sweet internet.
Well, I am Michael Powell, and you can find me all over the internet on my social media, which is at Mr. Kapow, that's MRKAPAO, or my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Michael Powell Does Stuff, because I do a lot of stuff, such as my YouTube channel, which is Fantastic Tales of Adventure. And on Thursdays, on the Toyzilla Network channel here on Twitch, I am on Toyzilla Live, where I talk about toy news and other fun nostalgia stuff. What about you, PJ?
Okay, so my name is PJ McGaw. You can find me all over the internet at pj.mcgaw, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Come and find me. Let's have a good time. When I'm not here Tuesdays with Mr. Michael Powell, and today with Sidney Rubino, I'm here Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for Edge of Legend, the Pathfinder 2nd Edition homebrew game, as they are now deep in the Green War. That being said, next Thursday, February 25th, I will be on Live Action Roleplay doing Alice is Missing, an all-text-based role-playing game where everything is improvised, and we all have to solve the mystery of where Alice went. It's going to be a lot of fun, texting only, no talking aloud. And, of course, last but not least, coming up this Saturday, Ra's Rave Party. What happens when a bunch of gods get together at the Malibu or Hollywood Hills, a hill of your choice, and just get partying? And what happens when people crash that party? This is a very special one-shot because this was made by you, the viewers, with your amazing Level 5 hype train. So we're keeping our promises, and we're going to be having a blast. And in light of certain tragedies that befell some of our really great friends, David and his family, there will be a fundraiser during this activity. Give what you can. Everything's fine. No rush or pressure. And hopefully we can help a good friend in the community out. Thank you so much for your time. And I hope to see you here. Same Nat time, same Nat channel at the table.
Bye.
Bye.